Good morning and namaskar to all of you. Let's do some prayers first. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhurbhavaswaha, Tatsavitravare Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गमय ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति 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 ओम. Today we're going to talk about divine love. Love of God is the very essence of spiritual life. Without this love, the religious practices are nothing but sheer physical and mental exercises. All the observances of rites and ceremonies are the worship of God. If we do it just for the temporal interest, no matter how solemn those ceremonies are, they do not constitute spirituality. The one purpose of all religious disciplines is to develop love of God. And this love of God is within the heart of a Bhagat. It is for this that he says all the prayers, chants hymns, studies scriptures, listen to the sermons, or make offerings, observes fasts and vigils, and even practices meditation. It's all for the love of God. So this love of God is the one supreme ideal of life. And this is what has been taught by the great teachers of the world. Even though we may know that God is the most lovable of all, God is the one which is inexhaustible source of all blessedness, goodness, beauty, and love. Yet we do not feel that longing to know him. Even though we know that it is through love alone that we can be imbibed with him, united with him, and attain eternal life, eternal light and joy. But so dominated are we by our deep rooted sense desires, or clinging to this temporary objects, we don't feel yearning for him. To counter these tendencies, to transform worldly thoughts and feelings, a spiritual aspirant must undergo certain disciplines. Because it's only through the life of law that he can enter into the life of love. Three distinct modes of worship constitute the practical methods for the cultivation of devotion to God. They are physical, verbal, and mental. The physical, that is a very external mode of worship, is performed by bowing down in reverence to God by the observance of different rites and ceremonies, offering flowers, lighting the lamps, incense, or even practice of the austerities, or even a personal service to the temple and the Guru. That is all under the heading of physical. The verbal worship is observed by the saying all prayers, the chanting of hymns, the study of the scriptures, and the repetition of a sacred name. That is verbal. And the mental worship consists in the constant remembrance of God, the renunciation of attachment, self-resignation, contemplation, etc. And any or all of these modes of worship may be practiced by the sadhak according to his or her own tendency, capacity, and situation in life. The practice of even one of these forms of worship, if followed with steadfast devotion, will generate love for God. The repeated utterance of a sacred word. We learned that from Ramcharitmanas yesterday. It could be a name or it could be a total mantra, which is almost like a formula, is a very simple method, but very efficacious. No accessory is needed for its practice. A sadhak can do it audibly, semi-audibly, or mentally. Of the three methods, the mental is the most effective. Why? Because it purifies the sadhak's mind to its very depths and enables him to hold his thoughts on God. Mental. In a sense, this constant repetition is a concentrated form of prayer. During prayer, we think of God by numerous words and phrases. But as our spiritual sense deepens, our feelings become intensified. A single word or phrase will convey all that God means to us. It becomes the focal point of all the ideas, sentiments regarding God. For example, to a Christian who has caught the inner spirit of Jesus Christ, the repetition of his name may do more to intensify devotion compared to the whole texts of Bible. The same thing goes with the word Om or Ram or any other name which you consider divine. Every word represents an idea. Just as each thought has its own word symbol, so there are word symbols or seed words, as they are called, to express mystical experiences. So on the path of yoga, they say that constantly repeat the seed word to germinate that spiritual awareness and love of God. With every breath, recite the name. That's how the love of God grows within the heart of a devotee. That's why they are called seeds. Ultimate, those seeds, they germinate. They grow. They bear flowers and fruits. So gradually, by the practices of these different methods of worship, the mind becomes purged of all dross and dirt and attachment to the temporary values of here and hereafter. And there grows a natural longing for God. The devotee seeks God passionately for his own sake until, like the needle of the compass, which always points north, his mind centers upon God under all the varying conditions of life. He remembers God constantly. This constant God recollection is called Bhakti. The key word is a constant. So no matter what you are doing, it could be walking, sleeping, eating, conversing with somebody, but constant remembrance of God through various attitudes. So during the preparatory stages, the sadhak's attitude toward God is very much stimulated by his thoughts and by the feeling of awe and reverence in the beginning, rather than the love of God. It's just a awe and reverence. He feels that God is the ruler of the universe. And consequently, he is more conscious of his splendor and power than of his sweetness and beauty. He seeks God that he may be freed from all bondages, that in him he may find real life, real light, real joy, knowing that none but he is worth seeking and loving as the supreme goal of life. So this is like a very initial step on the ladder of bhakti. But as love grows, the sadhak no longer indulges in such calculations. The might and the majesty of God no longer concern him. To him, God is all love. And love of God becomes one motivating factor, power of all his thoughts, feelings, and actions. Out of love of him, his hand works, his mind thinks, and his heart feels. So in short, he lives for God alone. That is the maturity in a devotee. So the attitude of the loving devotee toward God is reflected in this prayer, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. May my speech be engaged in the telling of thy glory. May my ears be engaged in listening to thy praise. May my hands be engaged in the performance of thy service. May my eyes see only that which is holy. May my head be ever bowed in reverence to the universe. Thy abode, and may my mind be ever engaged in the remembrance of thy blessed feet. So in other words, no matter what I do, I stay connected with him. Love and reverence are two different mental attitudes. So long as the worshipper thinks of the divinity as the almighty creator, or the stern ruler, or the dispassionate onlooker of the world order, he may have fear. and reverence for God, but not love. He may even have the tendency to bow down before him, but only from a distance. He will not feel drawn toward him. There will not be urge to become united with him or to embrace him as his own. But with the growth of devotion, there comes a sense of ultimate relationship to God. The more intensely sorry for the interruption. But with the growth of devotion, there comes a sense of intimate relationship to God. The more intensely the aspirant contemplates God's love and grace, the deeper grows his devotion to him. The devotee looks upon God as his very own. He feels that I am his, and he is mine. This feeling gradually manifests itself in various devotional attitudes, according to the aptitude and disposition of the aspirant. In Bhagavad Purana, we saw the classifications of devotion according to these attitudes. There are 5 principal headings. The first is called Shant, a serene attitude, in which God is seen as the immutable self, the calm witness of the mental and physical phenomena. Shant. Then we saw a Dasya attitude, the attitude of service. This includes the attitude of protected toward protector, the servant toward the master, the child toward the parent. That kind of a relationship. Third comes Sankhya, friendship. In this attitude, the devotee feels that he is a friend and a companion of God and his playmate. Next comes Vatsalya, the attitude of a parent. The devotee looks upon God as his own child. And lastly comes Madhurya, the sweet attitude of the lover and the beloved. We can see that in each succeeding attitude, there is an increasing intimacy between the devotee and God. In whatever way the devotee loves God, so does God love his devotee. Even though God may play the role of master, father, mother, friend, or lover toward his devotee, he is actually our all in all, through all eternity. Only we do not recognize him. There is no other father, mother, friend, or lover than he. All earthly relationships are temporary, therefore unreal. So it is that the devotee prays, you alone are my mother. You alone are my father. You alone are my wisdom and my treasure. You are my all in all. O God of gods, We sing that when we do the prayers. Every human being is a potential lover of God. All the lives we have lived, we have loved nothing but God. But our love has been misdirected. Through all our seeking after wealth, position, pleasure, friendship, love, and power, there has been the search for God actually. It is the urge for the infinite, the eternal, the perfect that impels our seeking. And that is why our mind refuses to be satisfied with that which is limited and imperfect. We have ever sought for the highest and the best. God alone is the highest, and God alone is the best. Your true being cannot respond to any other ideal than the attainment of the highest and the best. And when you knowingly seek God as the goal of your life, when you are fully aware that you are living for something beyond which there is nothing more to gain, something which once gained you can never lose, something which removes all sufferings, weaknesses, and imperfections forever, only then can you exert all the energies of body and mind to that end. And that's why knowledge is important. Knowledge is needed in this secular world. The same way the knowledge of God is needed in the sacred world also. Then nothing else can our whole being respond, because we know in the heart of our hearts that all achievements on the relative plane, no matter how glamorous, they are all short-lived. That's why they are not dependable. And as the yearning for God grows, all thoughts, all feelings combine into one single stream flowing toward Him. So, in the conscious search for God and God alone, does the integration of personality become possible. No lesser object can integrate our entire being. Impelled by this innate tendency to meet the highest and the best, the saints, they worship Him. The philosophers, they contemplate on Him. The manifestations of the same pure force of divine love definitely differ in different individuals because of our difference in the attitude or the various other dissimilarities. But still, we are all seeking for the same love for God. So that's why I would like to repeat again that worldly desires are but love of God misdirected. When a person seeks God consciously and in the right way, his spiritual life begins. So a great devotee of the Lord prays to Him, "May I ever remember you with that undying love which the unwise have for temporary things." Fundamentally, there's no difference between sense attachment and devotion to God. The grossest sense desire can be transmuted into genuine love of God by turning it Godward. And this has been seen in the life of many saints. There are two distinct trends of love in human hearts. The one is to love, and the other is to be loved. On the one hand, from your childhood, you have been seeking someone to whom you give all your love, whom you can make your heart's own. You have tried this with your parents, brothers, sisters, husband or wife, children, friends, or even pets. Yet you have found none on whom your affection can wholly, completely rest. Each one slips away from your loving hold somehow or others. Nobody seems to understand you. On the other hand, you have been looking for someone who will love you for love's sake, who will make you the sole occupant of his heart. But in this quest also, you have been sorely disappointed. You do not find anyone who loves you as you want to be loved. Even your most intimate friends and relations fall short of your expectations. Always there's a gap between two meeting hearts, however close. Rare indeed is the beloved, rare indeed is the lover. After many a long struggle, man realizes at last that God alone is the supreme object of his love. God alone is his supreme lover, and that the true predominant tendencies of his heart can find their fulfillment only in him, who is a lover, who is a lover and a beloved, all in one. Love of God is bliss itself. Even a mediocre level of love serves as a source of constant delight, which does not depend on anything external, which endures under all the conditions of life. As the love of God grows within, the devotee's entire being becomes vibrant with divine life, with light and sweetness. There is a special fascination and intoxication with this nectar of divine love. This devotee lives in a state of ecstasy. Devotee finds within himself a perennial spring of joy welling up from that fountainhead of all blessedness. One particle of that bliss makes the universe blissful. One touch of that beauty endows the face of nature with beauty. Just a one drop of that love fills all hearts with love. A devotee feels thoroughly contented. Devotee never looks back upon the transitory pleasures and the treasures of the sensuous world. Human beings hanker after earthly or celestial galaxies enjoys simply because as human beings, we don't have any idea of the supreme bliss which we can find within ourselves. But having once tasted this divine love, all thirst for enjoyment is quenched forever. Devotee realizes once and for all how trivial are the sense enjoyments or even the highest paradise, the Swargalok, how futile and foolish it is to run after them. This love for God culminates in complete union with God. As it grows deeper, the devotee feels an ever increasing longing for the realization of God. It becomes the sole concern of his life. His entire being centers upon only this idea. He feels God's presence nearer and nearer until he comprehends him as the Supreme Spirit shining within his heart, the very soul of the soul. While he still needs mental forms, attitudes, to grasp the formless spirit, he no longer contemplates on God in the external objects of forms and symbols. Within his own heart, he meditates on one particular form, only one form, or certain aspect of the divinity which he has chosen as his ideal. And with the continued practice, his mind becomes absorbed in the object of his meditation. And by the light of the knowledge, all the darkness gets removed. He sees God revealed as his chosen ideal. Yet it is by God's grace and love alone that he can be seen. Lord Krishna says about this in Bhagavad Gita in 10th chapter. He says, with their minds fixed on me, with their senses directed to me, enlightening one another, always speaking of me, they find satisfaction and delight in me. These are verses 9 and 10 in chapter 10. He says to them, ever devoted and worshipping me with love, I give the spiritual sight by which they attain me. Tesham satat yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yen mam upyanti te. Out of mere compassion for them, I, abiding in their hearts, destroy darkness born of ignorance by the luminous lamp of knowledge. As love intensifies, the devotee's individual self becomes so completely unified with God that he realizes the divine being as his very self. And as the self in all beings, he lives in the full consciousness of the one eminent in the universe. Such a devotee completely surrenders his will to God. In Bhagavad Puran, Vyasji said, he who sees the divine self in all beings and all beings in the divine self is the best devotee of God. He who bears love to God, friendship to his devotees, kindness to the ignorant, and indifference to his foes is of the second best type. So it's just like a gradation of a bhagat. And he who faithfully worship God only in the image and not in his devotees or others, he says it's a novice. Through devotion is also attained the knowledge of Brahma, the personal, impersonal, absolute being. That is Brahma. Lord Krishna declares, by devotion he knows me in reality, what and who I am. So again, to reach to that highest level, again this bhakti, the path of bhakti. He says, knowing me in reality, he forthwith enters into me. That means becoming one with me. And that's what yoga is, the union. Regarding this attainment of God knowledge through devotion, he says, by constantly meditating on God, the devotee loses his ego. Because ego is the one which is separating us. With the help of the devotion, with the help of the love for God, we got to dissolve this ego. And God says he realizes that he is God and God is he. There's no difference. Even so, the devotee may not lose his individuality. So individuality can stay there. Body is still there. But understanding that I am not the body, I am the Atma, and which is no different than Paramatma. There are some who return after this highest attainment of oneness. And while enjoying the bliss of divine love, guide, they come back to teach others. This state of transcendental devotion is reached by very few, he says. But he who has attained it sees everything with and without, permeated by divine consciousness and bliss. What does it really mean to us? As lovers of God, we got to see whether our intensity and understanding of devotion is increasing or not. Are we reaching to that point where we feel God is mine and I'm his? Are my thoughts more and more about God, love for God, or not? Or can I at least bring my bhakti to the mediocre level where I am kind to others? Even to the ignorant, a person who treats you badly, person who says, I don't believe in God, can we still see God in that person? When we worship the image of God, can we see the light and the purity in the image, or are we just only worshipping the image and staying at the level that my image is better than others' image? Because the light between the image is the same. Are we reaching to that point? Do we see God our eternal relative, eternal wealth, eternal knowledge, or not? We got to judge or mark ourselves. Are we improving on this ladder of bhakti? Because with the bhakti alone, with the help of the knowledge, we can reach to those highest. Only as a human being, we have been given this beautiful human form, where we have definitely we have a beautiful body, but at the same time, we have a mind and intellect, where we can differentiate, where we can contemplate, where we can see what our goal is. And we can also check, are we moving towards the goal, or are we just going in the circle of staying away from the goal? So this is what we need to check upon. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om.